I'm J. Rachel Addison.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
This week we're looking at the books of February 10th, 2015. Let's go.
First up this week is All New Wolverine number 5, written by Tom Taylor with art by David Lopez and Navarro, and colors by Nathan Fairbairn. So, as I'm sure will come as a great surprise to anyone who's been either following these reviews or ideally reading the book, this issue is great.
This whole series is great. This is my favorite Wolverine series ever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think this is my favorite Wolverine book of what's basically an all Wolverine week.
We have a lot of claws this week, it's true.
We do. Well, we've got this. We've got All New X-Men, which is very Wolverine centric, and we've got Old Man Logan, which is about fake Wolverine.
Exactly.
Because real Wolverine at this point is Laura Kinney. Logan is fake Wolverine.
Old Man Logan's about fake, dumb, stinky Wolverine.
Yes.
Actually, he's fine too. It's just Laura is that good that anybody looks.
He's okay. He's all right.
He's no Laura Kinney.
But really few are. I mean, I guess technically like 5 characters in this issue are, but you know.
Yeah. Anyway, point being, okay, so you know how last issue was this whole Doctor Strange magic-y thing going on? This is like Wasp, Ant-Man, tech, science-y stuff. And this is a great idea. This is a great way to introduce a character into their new role in the Marvel Universe, which is to take them to a bunch of different locations and genres and styles of comics. And so going from the one to the other, we're getting to see all these different sides of Laura and the way her world operates. It's awesome.
Well, what it very much feels like it's going through is a lot of classic superhero stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, we've mentioned this a lot, especially with regards to the art and especially with regards to the coloring, that this is a book that's very deliberately evoking a lot of specific superhero stuff. And this is no exception. I mean, this is not only a classic superhero story, but it's a classic superhero story, like down to the window dressing of, you know, superheroes get tiny and punch tiny robots in someone else's body.
I never get
that's
sick of
a
that.
Thing.
The X-Men have a good track record for that sort of thing, too. You remember that time in Wolverine and the X-Men where Beast took the kids into Toad's body?
I do.
Yeah, and then there was a thing with Kitty and the Brood. Anyway,
yeah,
point being,
and Kid Gladiator wouldn't stop punching the DNA.
I miss Kid Gladiator.
I'm not going to say he was a good kid, but he was an entertaining kid.
Yes, he was. Anyway, All New Wolverine, right. So, we have the Wolverine clone sister people still hanging out, and what an awesome collection of characters. Yeah. What an excellent addition to this book. One thing I really enjoy is because they're new characters, that really raises the stakes of the book. I mean, we all know that Laura's not going to, have all of her limbs chopped off to never come back or get killed or, go and spend the rest of her life in quiet contemplation of the divine or whatever. But when you have new supporting characters like these 3 women, stuff can happen. And so there's this sense of urgency and stakes that whenever anything bad happens, you're like, wait, is this real? Is this really what's going to happen? This issue actually reminded me a little in terms of its sense of stakes and shock of a lot of issues of Brian Vaughan and Fiona Staples' Saga, which is high praise, believe me. So yeah, this issue is number 5 of a series that now has 5 solid issues. There has not been a single miss. When does that happen? It's the best Wolverine book ever. I completely agree with you, Jay.
Yeah, I think at its worst, it's been excellent.
Yeah.
It's a scale we're rating it on just a scale that at this point is just 8 to 10.
Pretty much, yeah. So yes, check it out. Kind of in the middle of the story, but each issue really in the series has been very good at being a little bit of a self-contained story. So honestly, pick it up whenever, start at the beginning, start now, start next issue, check it out.
Next up, we've got All New X-Men number 4, written by Dennis Hopeless, drawn by Mark Bagley, inked by Andrew Hennessy, and colored by Nolan Woodard. Speaking of series who we have, I think, yet to have anything bad to say about.
And series with Laura Kinney as Wolverine.
Front and center. Oh, man. I still love this comic so much, and as it goes into its second arc, it feels like the first arc was good. The second arc feels cohesive and just together in a way that I think the first one didn't quite.
Mm-hmm. And also second arc after 3 issues.
Yeah.
Nice. I would like to see more of that. It's like every single arc these days is made exactly for the trade, coincidentally, I'm sure. And so it's nice just to see little fast-paced, bite-sized adventures, I
think part of what I like about this issue so much is, we every time we talk about this, we mentioned that Dennis Hopeless is one of our favorite X-Men writers. And this issue has him doing what he does absolutely best, which are fights as sort of a background montage, framing for character-focused things.
I completely agree, yeah.
It's good Bagley's art feels like it's got a little bit more breathing room here in ways I really appreciate too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it also helps that since this is kind of like a globe-stomping heroes, globe-trotting heroes. I bet they stomp sometimes.
Globe-porting? They teleport mostly.
Yeah, well, anyway, globe-something heroes, but not that we know of. Anyway, point is, it gives Mark Bagley a chance to draw a ton of different settings and a ton of different kinds of people in the background and a ton of different types of action and conversation. He just gets a lot to work with here, and that really, I think, showcases just how versatile his art is in terms of tone, in terms of visuals. As
we mentioned, the character who's really front and center this issue is Laura Kinney, Wolverine, and specifically in context of her relationship with Angel. And there are a couple things I really like about this issue, but one of the things that I keep coming back to is this series is making me genuinely invested in Warren Worthington III. And it's really disconcerting.
I know, like, Angel's cool, and he's not covered in knives and super gothy and a forebearer of the 90s.
He's cool. He's actively sympathetic. I mean, he's not always right, but he's actively sympathetic. And the conflict in this issue, like, I'm equal parts frustrated with, concerned for, and again, sympathizing with him. And yeah, it's not just having feelings about Angel, it's having complex feelings about Angel. And he's just not really written, three-dimensional enough for that to happen very often.
It's true, it's weird. But also just his relationship with Laura and the fact that sort of her character arc is what he's worried about. I mean, for one thing, hey, that's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
But so we were talking about this earlier, about kind of our different takes on... Okay, so in this issue, Wolverine makes a habit of repeatedly charging headfirst into near-suicidal danger, assuming that her healing factor and combat skills will get her out of it, which they do, but she also gets, torn apart frequently. And Angel worries, and I remember your take.
Angel worries, and Angel specifically describes it as not, that maybe it feels to him less, about being the first one on scene and doing what she has to than playing an ongoing game of how hardcore can Laura get herself hurt, which is something that actually I was thinking about earlier in the series, because Laura's been around in the comics for a really long time, so I don't know how many people watching this remember this, but in the comics, in her for the first long part of the story that she was in, and even continuing periodically in threads afterwards, she engaged in habitual self-harm. Like, that was a thing, and getting away from that was something that was always sort of uncertain. And the idea that she's jumping into traditional superheroing as kind of an unhealthy extension of that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least, Warren's concerned about it, whether or not he knows. Like, that's something, reading the early stuff with her, I kind of read that the same way Warren did in the comic. It feels like not just going in to be heroic, but deliberately disregarding and pushing this very specific line as far as she can.
At the same time, though, one of the changes we saw with Laura in the Death of Wolverine stuff was her finally embracing Wolverine's legacy, Logan's legacy, that is, in terms of superheroics, in terms of sort of the altruistic, brave, doing the right thing for the right reasons in bright colors. And I see a lot of that in here, too. I mean, to me, my take is I think it's kind of both. Some parts of her reasoning are healthy and others are really not.
And honestly, I think that's part of why it works so well. It would be really easy to very special episode this.
Yeah.
And it's not that simple, and it doesn't feel that simple. And I really like that, because honestly, it's never that simple.
Totally. Entirely unrelatedly, I really enjoy the fact that the X-Men from the past don't understand social media, and the X-Men from the present, like not Kid Apocalypse, Genesis, he's going by these days, and Oya do, and they sort of make fun of the old X-Men for that.
They try. I mean, I feel like modern Hank wouldn't really get to social media either. I think it's more just that Hank likes explaining things at length. I also really appreciate that one of the first pages of this involves Laura jumping through a plate glass window with a big grin on her face, yelling, "We are in love."
If your relationship is like that, then you're probably doing it right, and also be careful.
Yeah, healing factor.
Finally, we have Old Man Logan #2, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Andrea Sorrentino and colors by Marcello Maiolo. Well, this is my favorite issue yet. I mean, there have been two, but I like this one better than the first one.
Your favorite of Old Man Logan, you mean? Because, man, of the three this week are all really good, but I think this comes in a still very high third.
Yes. But it's good stuff. I think it makes sense to have this version of Logan's introductory arc be about trying to deal with his past. Because if you came from a horrifying, hellish future dystopia and then got sent to the past, of course you would try to change history. Especially if you're an X-Men character, because you always try to do that if you're an X-Men character.
And you always fail because the universe just splits.
I want to hang out with I want to have Old Man Logan and Rachel Summers and Cable and Bishop all hang out.
And just drink.
And just drink and complain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this time Logan is after the Hulk, because in the original Old Man Logan story by Mark Millar, the Hulk's offspring became horrible, evil, hillbilly stereotypes that did terrible things, which is kind of uncomfortable and weird.
It's very Mark Millar, though.
It is. But you kind of got to address it, so okay. There is a scene of them punching cows until they explode early on, the Hulk kids, which is weird.
Miles really liked the cow-shaped panel borders in that scene.
Cow-shaped panel borders, you guys? I've never seen that before.
It needs to be used more in non-violent contexts.
In contexts that have nothing to do with cows.
No.
We just like cows, I don't know. So anyway, I mean the artist.
Now I'm trying to think of what other animals have distinct enough silhouettes that you could get away with that.
Turtles.
Like, I don't feel like...
Dolphins.
Yeah.
Dolphin-shaped panels, there we go. Artists out there,
Capybaras
take note.
would be difficult.
But hilarious.
Hilarious.
But we digress. Point being, it's a cool issue and it's a sad issue, and Old Man Logan should be sad. I mean, we see flashbacks to the future that Logan came from. Yes, that. With him basically seeing the Hulk gang do these terrible things and being unable to help, realizing that if he gets back into that world, it'll consume him and his family, which of course it ultimately does anyway. And then in the present, him doing his best to take out the Hulk and utterly failing because the Hulk is the freaking Hulk and Logan is very old.
Well, and also because the Hulk is Amadeus Cho, not Bruce Banner. So,
right.
You know, there's that. Man, so the thing, I have a real big soft spot for feudal revenge quests. Mm-hmm. Like, they're one of my favorite kinds of tragedy. I arrogate them because I'm terrible. But and that really appeals to me here, and I think it's a character and concept well suited to that.
Absolutely. But the fact that it is Amadeus Cho, the fact that Amadeus Cho is a fully heroic, optimistic, still ragey but nice, kind
He's
Hulk.
Not that ragey. He's mostly just super strong.
He gets a little carried away and.
Okay, there's a guy attacking him. Like, I think the rage is entirely situation appropriate and not necessarily Hulk related.
Well,
I feel like it's an entirely rational response to what's going on.
That's reasonable. But the way he's portrayed just makes Logan look that much sadder, because not only is he on this futile quest that we know isn't going to work as longtime X-Men readers, but he's also attacking the wrong dude, a guy who does not deserve it at all.
I like that Amadeus Cho keeps on calling him old.
Yeah. I also...
It just, I don't know, it just makes me happy.
I also like that Amadeus Cho's Hulk is drawn very differently by Andrea Sorrentino than most characters in this book are. Amadeus is drawn with these much softer lines. As much as he's like a fearsome monster, he just looks a lot less in that gritty world that Logan inhabits.
He looks young. Visually, the way his face is shaped, the way his body's designed, the sort of smoother, less angular lines, like he's coded friendly. He's coded almost childish.
Yeah, totally. So well done there.
Yeah, Sorrentino's kind of knocking it out of the park this issue in general. I took some time to warm up to his art on this book, but this issue really got me. Like I think it's the storytelling is great, the expression is great.
And hey, cow-shaped panels. What more do you need?
A little more.
All right, those are our three. Jay, what's our favorite this week?
Well, all three of the issues that came out this week were really good. But there are some weeks when there's something that's not an X-Men comic that's so amazing that comes out that it automatically
Oh.
Your beard is always amazing, Miles. But I might hazard that our pick of the week might even be more amazing than your beard. It's really good. So a few months ago, the internet kind of went crazy about a Dazzler music video called Sight of the Sound. And the folks who made that just came out with their second video today. It is called I Will Steal Your Heart, and it features our very favorite Marvel musician, intergalactic thief, rock star, and Joan Jett lookalike Lila Cheney. Yes. It is amazing. It is brilliant. The song is really catchy. The video is basically non-stop homage and subtle continuity and obvious continuity callouts to one of the best New Mutants annuals of all time, Steal This Planet.
Mm-hmm. Number
one. And so I've seen it, like 4 or 5 times at this point, and every time I ended up just sort of bouncing up and down and yelling.
Yeah, and it's full...
so great!
It's full of New Mutants. It's got all 9 New Mutants, and it's got a bunch of cool little guest stars, and Dazzler's up there being vaguely resentful of Lila because Lila's stealing the spotlight. There's
also
so
some
much.
possibly recognizable adorable t-shirts in the audience.
Yes, from a podcast you may or may not have heard of.
Yeah, they're jerks, though. Yeah,
those guys.
X-Men podcasters.
But yeah, this video is freaking delightful. I was just grinning like a maniac the entire time I watched it the first time and subsequent times.
These are the director, Arvind Bautista, is at this point someone we know and is fantastic. I gotta say also call outs to Sage Montclair, who plays Lila in this.
Yeah.
And especially and above all, kind of the person who kind of makes the video for me is Dennis Barton, who plays Sam Guthrie.
Plays Cannonball,
and whose ability to look slightly out of his depth is one of the most charming things I have ever seen.
I really liked Magma too, and Warlock. I kind of like them all.
I like that they managed to find a cast of kids who look like they're drawn by Bob McLeod.
Yeah, what's up with that?
That's so good.
So yes, please check it out. If you like New Mutants at all or good things, it's so much fun.
And I would actually recommend watching it and then rereading Steal This Planet and then watching it again and getting really excited at all of the little parallels.
Yes, do that thing.
Oh man, it's so great. It's so good. Like, I just want to stop the video and go watch it now.
We shouldn't do that.
All right. Yeah, we should still do Panel of the Week. So, Miles, do you want to talk about that one?
Panel of the Week is from All New Wolverine. It's actually a page of the week. I think we break our rules about as often as we obey them.
They're more like guidelines.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, just the sort of camera work on this page is phenomenal. I mean, it's Wasp and Wolverine, very, very tiny, being injected into one of the Wolverine clones through a syringe. And the way it just zooms out, they get tinier and tinier, and then bam, giant face. It really sells the sense of scale.
Which is still part of the zoom out.
Yeah, exactly. As does the sort of turning of the camera, which gives it a sort of action-y, motion-y feel. So great panel flow, great page construction. And that's this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got this week?
This week is the X-Men corner of the Marvel Universe 1988 annuals, The Evolutionary War.
Oh boy.
Where the High Evolutionary does a lot of weird stuff that doesn't really hold together.
And is so bad at his job that Apocalypse tries to stage an intervention.
On the upside, there is a giant space dog that has pirates ride around on a city on its back, so that's cool at least.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at rachelandmiles.com are brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely listener-supported project. That's why we're able to stay ad-free. That happens thanks to those folks. And if you would like to join their ranks, which we would very much appreciate, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it.
Yep. In the meantime, we will see you next week, where presumably nothing as cool as the Lila music video will come out. But if it does, hey. Hey, kids!
I do actually use that a lot.
Foolish mortals. You'd like Dr. Doom it?
I don't know. I'm really perpetually entertained by the thing where we pretend the listeners are our kids and tell them that we love them all equally.
Now I'm just trying to think of what Apocalypse would call a group of people.
Foolish mortals.
The thing is, Apocalypse doesn't...
Apocalypse doesn't address crowds. Yeah, he doesn't care.
They only exist as his audience.
Yeah.
Like, it's just him ranting, and he's like, well, you should watch me rant because
But they're
I'm
not
that
his
awesome.
direct audience. Like, Dr. Doom would rant at the audience. Apocalypse just rants and assumes everyone's paying attention.
So, I'm thinking he probably actually just does that all the time, whether anyone's around or not.
He just monologues?
Yeah. Well, and he was living in Ship for a long time, which was kind of sentient.
Oh, that's a really good point.
I bet he was sad. I think the only reason he gave it up is because he had a bunch of horsemen to hang out with him and listen to him talk.
Aw. He
Ship.
flavor of the month, Ship.
Apocalypse is a mean
Apocalypse
girl.
is a bad friend.
Oh. Damn it, Ensabanur.